The New Jersey Devils are on the verge of starting training camp, and yet they're still in intense negotiations with Dawson Mercer over a new contract. Trey Matthews of Locked On Devils is here to talk about that and all things Devils with training camp right around the corner. All that and next on today's Locked On NHL podcast.
You're Locked On NHL, your daily podcast on the National Hockey League. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Gil Martin here, and welcome everybody to the Monday edition of the Locked On NHL podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On NHL your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you get a new episode as soon as it drops. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. It is my pleasure to welcome back to the show the host of Locked On Devils, Trey Matthews. And Trey, the big talk around the Devils as of right now, the ongoing contract negotiations with Dawson Mercer. Why don't you fill us in on the latest of what's going on right now?
Yeah, so I don't think there's much concern surrounding Dawson Mercer's contract because here's what's going on. He's a restricted free agent. He holds no arbitration rights. It's not a matter if, it's a matter when will a deal get worked out. And Tom Fitzgerald said during one of his summer press conferences that Dawson Mercer is, in fact, a part of the long-term solution. Now, the thing is, Mercer this past season, he had career lows in a lot of statistical categories. The only thing that was really consistent was the amount of games that he's played in. And I got to give him credit. He is the Iron Man for this New Jersey Devils roster. In his 3 years in the league, he has never missed a game due to injury or being a helpful scratch. He certainly knows how to go above and beyond the call of duty, but the facts are there. Statistically, he wasn't really all that great, but he still has a lot of untapped potential, I feel as though. And obviously, this past season for New Jersey didn't really go as planned just because the amount of injuries they dealt with. They were sellers at the deadline. They fired Lindy Ruff, just to name a few things. So I think Dawson Mercer certainly can take his game just a little bit higher. And I think this is where they're at an impasse, which is maybe Mercer wants to sign a 1-year extension just so he can get more money sooner rather than later. Because like I said, he's a good player, but maybe Fitzy wants to sign him to a 2 or 3 year extension because here's something else you have to factor in. At the conclusion of this upcoming season, Luke Hughes is in need of a new contract because his entry-level deal will expire, and that kid is going to get paid if he has another good season, and rightfully so. There's a lot to factor in, and also maybe the Devils will be buyers at this year's trade deadline. So who's going to be available? What assets would they be willing to give up? There's some other players that might be in need of some new deals. There's so many moving parts to this mechanism that I can understand why maybe it's taking a little longer than anticipated to see where they're at with Dawson Mercer. But considering the fact he's a restricted free agent, holds no arbitration rights, I think a deal is going to get sorted out at some point. But I must be honest with you, Gil, even I didn't anticipate for it to be this long.
When does he get arbitration rights, for example? So if they sign him to a 1-year deal, does he become eligible for arbitration next summer?
We don't really know for the time being. I probably, because the thing is like people are comparing it to Jesper Bratt's situation. Because if you recall, Jesper Bratt and Tom Fitzgerald, the front office, they were at an impasse as well in terms of contract extensions. Because the thing is like Bratt could have made a lot more money, but Fitzy was trying to sign him on the down low. They couldn't come to an agreement, and he had to sign a 1-year extension, but he showed out and he showed that he is worth that money. And then that resulted in an 8-year extension. And then this past season, Bratt was an all-star. The thing for Dawson Mercer is that he's at the end of his entry-level contract. That's the thing. So to answer your question, I think that's definitely the direction that's going to go down, just because, like I said, he's at the end of his entry-level contract, and now they're trying to work out that new deal. That's where he's a restricted free agent in that sort of sense.
Now, there is a little bit of trophy buzz surrounding the New Jersey Devils, a player who could be in contention for the Hart this year. Talk to me about that.
Jack Hughes. But the thing is, we've been having the same conversation the last few years. Can Jack Hughes get his name into the Hart Trophy race? And here's my answer this upcoming season. It's possible, but the biggest thing is he needs to stay healthy, because there have been a few times when he's missed extended periods of action due to injury. So if he can gain some muscle, maybe just be more prepared, whatever the case might be, now he has some more people around him that are willing to fight on his behalf, because you don't want Jack Hughes taking on a fight with somebody. Just there's stronger pieces around him. We'll see what happens, but I'm not going to get my hopes up too high, but it's possible. I'll just say that. But like I said, Gil, we've been having the same song and dance routine the past couple seasons. I think Jack Hughes can definitely become one of the best players in this generation, or because Wayne Gretzky one time said that Jack Hughes has the best chance of catching 97 being Connor McDavid. Gretzky's words, not mine, so take it how you want to take it. But the thing is like, okay, I love the high praise from the great one, but Jack still has some work to do, and part of it is just staying healthy.
Yeah, it's hard to be a Hart Trophy candidate if you're not on the ice. There's no question about that. What are some of the biggest questions facing this team with training camp just about a week away?
I don't think there's too much concern or anything. I think the big thing is, can this team stay healthy? Because when you're missing players like Nico Hischier, Jack Hughes, Dougie Hamilton, few other role players, so on, for extended periods of time, yes, you're not really going to be all that successful. And the Devils, unfortunately, fell victim to that just this past season. I think that's the biggest thing. What can this team do now that they're healthy? Because there's some other things that we need to factor in. Their goaltending did get better. Jacob Markstrom, Jake Allen. Their blue line got better. Brett Pesce, Brendan Dillon. And we'll see what can happen to Luke Hughes and Shimon Nemetz now that they have more NHL experience under their belts. Or when it comes to their offense, they added Stefan Nason, Paul Cotter, Tomas Tatar. Okay, there's more depth, and you replace some of the holes that were left by Ryan Graves, Damon Severson, Michael McLeod. You replace those players. Now let's see what you can do and how can you elevate it a little bit more.
Are you concerned with all this roster turnover that it may take a little while early in the season for this team to gel?
I mean, I think, could they get off to a slow start? Maybe. But the thing is like, I'm rather confident in Sheldon Keefe and the direction he'll take this team. And Stefan Nason and Tomas Tatar, they've been here before. They're former Devils. Devils right. United with them. Well, obviously different coaches for both of them. But still, it's just like they've been here before. And you still got your core four in Jack Hughes, Nico Hischier, Jesper Bratt, Timo Meier. And don't forget about Dougie Hamilton. I consider Meier, Hischier, Bratt, and Hughes the core four, but Dougie Hamilton is someone you can't underestimate as well. But I think they're going to be just fine, honestly. I think just the biggest question is, can they stay healthy, and can this defense protect their netminders? That's also a big question.
And how do you see the goalie splitting the playing time this year?
Jacob Markstrom is going to be the bona fide starter. That was revealed by Tom Fitzgerald during his summer press conference. So, yeah, I think Jacob Markstrom will start a good majority of the games, which I agree with, just because I think Jake Allen was really good for New Jersey, and I thank Montreal every night for retaining half of his contract. And I also thank the Flames for retaining about 31% of Markstrom's contract. So the Devils got two solid goalies on the down low, and we talk about how short the goalie market is. So I think the goaltending is going to be just fine. Jacob Markstrom, he was the runner-up in the Vezina Trophy race a few years ago. Jake Allen, I think he got too much blame in Montreal. I think he was just fine with New Jersey. And if the Devils, by any string of luck, made it to the playoffs, I said Jake Allen deserved a lot of the credit just based on how he elevated in between the pipes for New Jersey. But I think this goaltending tandem isn't going to be the best in the NHL. I don't really think so, but I think it's pretty solid if you ask me.
Certainly an upgrade over where they were a year ago, no question about that. Trey, why don't you tell our viewers and our listeners where they could find the podcast and where they could find you on social media?
You can find Locked On Devils wherever you get your podcast from, on YouTube, and you can find me on Twitter or X at TreyMatt4. And make sure you subscribe on the YouTube page. And if you enjoy listening to my show on a podcast streaming service, hit me up on my Twitter page.
All right, Trey, thanks so much. Always a pleasure.
Thank you, Gil.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel anytime. And look, this is a great time of year for betting on FanDuel. You could find all kinds of great things to bet on. You've got hockey futures, you've got college football, pro football, the baseball pennant races are heating up. So look at all the latest odds at FanDuel.com. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook. That's FanDuel.com. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook.